Hello, my name is Karen Jernigan. It's Friday, July the 20th, 2018, and we are here in King City, California to have a conversation with Josephine Pacheco Koester about her knowledge of King City, the town where she was born and raised. We are doing this on behalf of the San Antonio Valley Historical Association in cooperation with Soul Treasures Arts and Cultural Center located at 519 Broadway. We are actually today across the street from Soul Treasures at Rabobank. So first I'm going to ask Josephine to state and spell her full name for the record.
My name is Josephine Pacheco Koester, Josephine Pacheo Koester.
Thank you, and that's important because a lot of times names have unusual spellings and it's easy to confuse people years from now, so we like to know how things are spelled. So Josephine, we're going to start off by asking you to give us the date of your birth.
My birth date is 11/11/25.
11/11/25. Okay, and where were you born?
I was born in King City, California at 516 North Vanderhurst.
And was that a home?
At home.
At home, okay. And did your mother or father tell you any stories about your birth, that a doctor came to your house or a nurse came to your house, or?
That a doctor came to the house, but he got there a little short.
He was late, huh?
Yes. So anyway.
Do you know what doctor it was?
Dr. Brummel.
Dr. Brummel, okay. He was pretty well known here in town, doctor for many, many years. So let's go back even farther. What are your parents' full names?
My mother's name is Caroline Freitas Pacheco, and my dad's name is Manuel Pacheco. I don't know that he had a middle name.
Okay, and do you know what nationality they were?
They're both Portuguese.
Both Portuguese. And do you know how they came to the King City area?
Well, my grandparents came from Portugal. They landed in Hawaii, and my folks were born there. And from there, they migrated to San Francisco, San Leandro area, and then they got down to King City to live with my aunt and uncle until our house was built. And that was during the bad flu years.
Would that have been 1918, the bad flu
Yes,
years?
yes.
I remember that. That was a pretty significant time. So you had relatives, Pacheco relatives, living here?
My aunt was a Pacheco, and her husband was Castro.
Oh, okay. All right. And they were living in the town of King City or
Yes,
out
on-
in the...
on South Vanderhurst.
Okay, on South Vanderhurst. Okay, so I want to make sure that we have permission to use this recording to educate people about history. So Josephine, I want to ask you, do we have your permission to share this information with others interested in history?
Very much so.
Okay, wonderful. So Soul Treasures this month is doing an exhibit called King City, Past, Present, and Future. As part of that, we want to ask Josephine to share with us some of her early memories of the town. Across the street at Soul Treasures, there's, in the room with us is videographer John Jernigan, who's over in this direction. And we have a variety of guests who have come to listen to our interview. And one honored guest, a young man named Koester from Lockwood, who is Josephine's great-grandson. So we're glad you're here, and I think you'll learn some neat things about your great-grandmother. So Josephine, tell us, please, what you remember about your parents.
Well, my dad was a very hardworking man. He worked in the fields when he got here, the beet fields, and then he also was a cook and he worked in several places in town. He worked at the airport when the Army was there, and he worked at the El Camino Hotel restaurant,
Okay.
and he also worked in the Vendome Hotel.
Okay. Two important hotels from a long time ago. And what about your mother?
My mother was too busy with several children. When it was during the Depression, she had to go out and help with finances because we had a large family of 9, and so she had to work as a housekeeper for 25 cents an hour. And so she did several houses in town, and that helped out. And she just did a lot of canning and cooking for the whole batch of us. And we had big vegetable gardens, so she always did a lot of canning.
So when you say a family of 9, you had 6 brothers and sisters? So there were 7 children, your parents and 7 children?
And of course, some of them were deceased.
Oh.
So one was in the 1980s with the flu, and one in Hawaii, and then the rest were here.
Okay. And where were you in the lineup of the
I'm
7?
the last of the 5 girls.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so what are your earliest memories of King City?
Well, the earliest one was after, of course, I was in the house that they had built and lived there till I got married. And it was dirt streets. We had nothing but dirt out there. And until then, they put in the streets pavement.
You remember that? You remember them paving the streets?
Yes. Yes.
So that was probably in the 30s, the 1930s.
All of it, yeah.
Okay. Did you play with kids in the neighborhood? And
Oh, yes, we had an army of kids in our block. We used to close off the street so the cars wouldn't go through, and we played ball, and we made all our toys. We had stilts and scooter boxes, and we used cans on our feet, and we had rubber guns, slingshots, kites, and what else? Played marbles, King of the Mountain. Rover came over. We just had all kinds of things we made up for ourselves. We had a man that had plowed on a corner of Vanderhurst and Old Ray Street with big horses, and he plowed and made big clods, and we built forts and threw rocks at each other. And and we just made our own entertainment. Was not costly because money was short, and we all got along. We had a few black eyes and broken bones and whatever, and cuts, and yeah, just like normal kids, you know.
so if you were born in 1925, then you were a pretty young child during the Depression. Do you think that influenced your home life at all, living through the Depression?
I think so. You know, we learned the value of things. We didn't expect much. We had food on the table. We were clean. We all worked together and went to school and helped Mom baking breads and, like I say, canning. And we hung clothes. We cut wood for the stove. We had a wood stove, and Mom would cook on that. And then the heat, we would eat out in the backyard. And then in the winter time, of course, it helped with the heating bill. And so that's what we did when we were young, yes. And we always worked together. We all had chores to do. On Saturday, some washed windows. And in our younger days, we had cotton mattresses. You know what cotton mattresses are?
No, I don't.
There's no springs in them.
Oh, okay.
And my mom come from Hawaii, so they put their mattresses out in the sun a lot. So guess what? We had an upstairs house, And we had to roll those little things up and bring them outside and put them in the sun every week. So that was a ritual at our house. And so we had, like I say, we had upstairs and it was full of kids, and downstairs was full of kids. And so we had a clean house. My mom always had a very clean house. I can say that for my mom. She was a very good housekeeper.
So did you go to school here? Do you remember starting school in King City?
Yes, I went to first grade when I was 7 years old. That's
Okay.
what the starting age at that time.
Okay, and
We
where
didn't
was
have
the school?
kindergarten.
No kindergarten.
No kindergarten.
Mhm. And where was the school?
San Lorenzo?
Okay, that's on Pearl Street,
Yes,
across from
in King
the,
City.
okay, across from the City Hall.
Right.
And did you go there for 8
8
years?
years, yes.
Okay.
Graduated there and went to King City High School. And
And
graduated from there and went to work.
when did you graduate from high school?
1945.
1945. So, that was kind of the World War II era when you were in high school.
Yes, yes. I worked at the air base. I spotted planes on top of the El Camino Hotel. Worked at the USO. We took buses to Fort Ord and Camp Roberts and danced with the soldiers. And at that time, I also worked at the theater.
So just for people who don't know, when you say the air base, you're talking about the King City Airport
Yes,
where
my
Mesa
great-
del Rey
Yes,
flying school was,
Right,
where they trained pilots
Yes.
during the war.
and my dad cooked up there.
Oh, your dad cooked there? And then when you talk about spotting planes, what do you mean by that?
We had sheets of different planes that we had to recognize, and there were about 3 or 4 of us up on top of the El Camino Hotel, and we took shifts, and if an airplane went over, we had to tell what it was and program that in.
So you actually stood up on the top of the El Camino Hotel
Yes.
and did that?
Yes.
Did you do it during the day or at night?
We took turns,
So sometimes at night too?
Mhm.
Oh, interesting.
mostly in the daytime.
Mostly in the day? Okay. So let me just go back quick to your school years. Did you have some friends that were lifelong friends from your
yes.
school years here? Who would those people be?
Well, Lucille Rochella was my closest friend because she lived across the street from us.
Okay,
And Betty Haups lived on the next block,
okay,
and the Ascona family lived on the next block also.
okay.
Cecilia Boyd Patereau lived in the Boyd Court, and well, there was a family named Scott that lived there on a place. We had several families that came and went, but the Hicks family was another family that was down on the block where I lived, and the Robles and Marie Lewis lived next door. We did a lot together. The houses were just full of children, and we just had a big happy group, and we played very well together. We had a few mishaps, but that goes with children.
So I want to go back to your high school years, and probably by then you can remember some of the businesses that were in town back when you were growing up. And I'd like to just kind of walk with you down Broadway and talk about some of the businesses that you remember. You just talked about the El Camino Hotel, and that was at First and Broadway. It was a pretty important hotel right across the street from the railroad tracks. But let's start on the other side of the street, across from the El Camino.
Okay.
So what do you remember on that corner?
Well, First Street, the corner of First and Broadway, there was a Flying Ace gas station.
Okay.
And then they had a fountain there next door, Cafe Fountain. And up the street there was a garage. Mr. Lake owned that and sold it. And then from there, Mr. Lynn had an Army surplus store.
I've heard
And then
of it.
Yates had a hotel,
Uh-huh.
and the bus depot was there, and served good hamburgers. Anyway, and then we had a bakery there, and then of course then there was the Shell station
And that's all on the 100 block
on
of
the
Broadway.
100
Okay.
block, yes.
And so you've already mentioned 2 gas stations. So King
Mhm.
City was basically Highway 101, probably most of the time that you remember, with a
Right.
lot of traffic going through town, a lot of gas stations on the corners. You've already described 2 of them. Keep going then. What was on the next corner? Right now where we have...
Down in the second
Yes,
block?
we have La Petronca Tacos there now. What was that? Do you
There
remember?
was a blacksmith shop there
Okay.
when I was growing up. Had a big elderberry tree in the front.
Okay.
And we'd come back from school, we'd go through there and we'd pick the berries when they're ripe. So that was just one of the trips we made out of school.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was, of course, that was way back when I was like 7,
Okay.
something like in that age. And then, of course, from there, Pootsie came in, had a bar.
Okay.
And then from there, we had a Lowe's Cafe. Yeah. And before all that came, well, we had Mars family, and they had a grocery store, a long building with lots of rooms with the Chinese people that worked on the railroads. They stayed there. I didn't see them, but my folks told me. And then they sold that building, cut it in half, and Mike Rochella and his nephew took them to Vanderhurst and made houses out of them.
Interesting.
Mm-hmm. And some of them are still there. They moved a lot of houses, the Rochellas did. Okay, and from there the theater, and then the next one
Was that the Real Joy Theater?
It was it was a real joy because
Okay.
my husband's aunt named that theater.
She did?
Yeah.
What story have you heard about that?
Well, Aunt Bertha was living out here across the river and with her husband and daughter, and they had a contest.
Oh, I hadn't heard that.
And she won the contest and called it Real Joy. And then the Hobbles had it. And so then there was a little candy stand there between the theater and the City Cafe. Well, the City Cafe was run many years ago by the Mars family, and then we go there and they serve good food. But we went there when I was in the 5th grade. I had a girlfriend and her uncle would take us there. And after the show, we would go next door and have strawberry shortcake. Boy, was it ever good. Yeah, so anyway, that was, and then on the corner was a Standard station.
Okay, I've seen pictures of that. Okay, so that's great. Let's keep going. So you're at 3rd and Broadway, which is kind of the corner of town, or an important corner in town. And was the bank building there?
The bank, all the banks in town are just about the same, all but Bank of America.
Okay,
Yeah.
Bank of America. Okay, and then what do you remember next to Bank of America on the 300 block?
It was called at one time, the one that the pizza place is, they used to call that the Bank of Italy.
Okay.
Long if I recognize that, quite a long years ago. And then next to the bank on the south side was a telephone company where they put the plugs in,
Yes, yes.
that was in there.
Uh-huh.
And then there was the Chevrolet garage, and then the Purity store.
Now, the Chevy garage is probably what we knew as Fairway.
Walter Payne ran
Walter
that
Payne
one.
ran the Chevy garage, and then most of us in the current day remember that as Fairway, or right now El Pueblo Market.
Yes, right.
And then the Purity, that's the old
Where they have the fitness center
Casey's
now.
Fitness now, used to be
Yeah.
A1 Market. Yeah,
Yeah.
okay. That's a really old building. Yeah, okay.
And then they had, George Bridges had, I remember George Bridges had a electrical TV, not TV, but radio and that kind of stuff.
Okay.
And then there was a little, kind of like Ace Hardware, but it was more than that. It was just a small building in there, and that was run by the Greens. And there was another little place in there, and right now I can't remember what it is at the time.
You're remembering a lot already. That's great.
And then, of course, there was the hotel next to Tavernetti's Insurance that went up on top. Okay, there was just a little stairway in there. And that was about all that was on that I can remember.
Okay. And then if you go across the street even farther, there's a big building that you said was a car dealership across from what is the library now?
Bengard's Buick Garage.
Buick Garage. Okay. And
then there was a little store Catherine Adams ran, and she had all kinds of things. She sold a lot of sheet music because she played the piano, and she played the piano for dancers out in the Bitterwater Hall, and she was kind of a funny little lady.
a character, you might say?
Well, she didn't like our comments on some of her merchandise, and she chased us out of there many times. But I bought a hat in there, and I wore it quite a while ago. And my mom used to go and get measured for corsets. And she would get the measurements and buy corsets there, and they were nice corsets anyway. But anyway, it was fun going in there because she had a lot of look almost like I call it jug stores.
Was it called the Melody Shop?
Yes.
Yes, I've heard some stories about
Yep.
that. It was before my time, but I've heard
Yep.
some stories.
It was, but it was fun going in there because she had a lot of oddities and,
Oddities, yeah.
clothing. I mean, it wasn't very big. I don't think it was as big as this room, but it was a kind of fun place to go to.
And then that's kind of on the way to the Masonic Lodge?
Yes, the Masonic Lodge, yes.
And maybe the Cleaners on the corner?
A laundry and cleaners, the
Laundry.
Rosario, Waters, Mr. Waters used to run that. And he lived across the street on Southwest. Yeah, and every 8 o'clock, 12 o'clock, 5 o'clock, the whistle would blow.
In town?
Yeah, he had a whistle.
Oh, at the Cleaners?
At the Cleaners.
Like a whistle on a building?
Yeah.
Oh.
So we knew what time it was.
Oh, that's kind of reminds me of the siren that used to be on the police department.
Well, there is one up by the cogeneration plant there
by
now.
Basic now.
Yeah.
That was,
So when I work in the garden, I know what time it is. If it blows at 5 o'clock, it's time to go in the house and get dinner.
Exactly. Okay, so that's kind of the historic block of Broadway. What about on the other side? Do you remember, if we start back towards the east, do you remember?
Well, where the library is now.
Well, how about, wasn't there like a furniture store kind of directly across?
Oh, that was right in the middle.
Okay,
of the
furniture store, and then, yeah.
There was Lynn's Liquor on the corner.
Lynn's Liquor on the corner, right?
And then there was, what was that other shop? My granddaughter had her flower shop
Oh, yes,
there
she
too.
did.
Precious
I remember
Petals,
that. Precious
yes.
Petals was in there.
And then Watson's Furniture Store was there. And then where Edward Jones is was the mortuary.
The mortuary, that's right. Do you remember the name of the mortuary?
Ran by Mr. Foster, but I can't remember what the name of what they called it. I can remember going in there when I was 7.
Mr. Foster or Mr. Ford?
Ford.
Mr. Ford.
Ford, excuse
yeah,
me.
I saw that in
Ford.
the
Ford.
library has a new microfilm scanner,
Oh.
and you can have access to old newspapers from the Rustler.
Oh.
So we found an article about
Yeah.
Mr. Ford when he built his
Right.
mortuary there,
Right.
where Michelle Ng now has her Edward Jones office. Okay, so what about next to that?
Well, there was a big empty lot there.
Okay,
For
where
many,
the library
for many
is.
years.
Okay.
And we used to have the Jenny's Tent Show,
Jenny's Tent Show.
and we work and get a few pennies to go to the tent show, and we set what we called the chicken roost because there were bleachers in the back, and we had to pay 10 cents to go and see the tent show.
Was it like a circus?
Not quite. It was more like a play.
Oh.
And
Okay.
one of them was called Toby Ticklebritches. He was performing. He was like a clown, and so we always had to go see Toby Ticklebritches. So we had to work like you cannot believe to earn our 10 cents to go to Ticklebritches. So we would hoe weeds on the sidewalks, and we would take cement off of bricks with a hammer, and one whole block, I did a sidewalk for 10 cents to
Wow.
hoe the weeds off, because we didn't have cement sidewalks. Everything was dirt, so we had a lot of things to play in the dirt with, you know. But anyway, that tent show would come every year, and then we had carnival on the corner also.
Okay.
And then they put the USO in.
Oh yeah, the USO is where Butch-Wright Pettit Davis is.
Right.
And you said you worked there, or you
Well,
were just to hang out there?
I was a junior hostess.
A junior hostess. Okay, that's great. When all the during World War II,
They
when
always
all the
said,
pilots.
they
were
always
here.
said to me, junior hostess with the mostest? That's what they used to tell me all the time. I said, no, not with, no. Anyway, but we danced every night there, and I'd work at the theater, and when I got out of the theater, I would go right straight to the USO.
Okay.
So-
And then what about that next block, the 300 block?
Well, first, when I was real young, we had a service station, which is still there,
Okay.
on the corner.
Okay.
And then Dr. Brummel had his.
his. Okay.
And then we had right there next to Dr. Brummel's, before
Mm-hmm.
you get to Dr. Brummel's, was a big, like an Airstream trailer.
Okay.
And they cut the side of it out.
Okay.
That's what it looked like when we were there. And we would go, and it was called a snow cone. We go there and get snow cones and caramel suckers for a penny, and the snow cones were 5 cents.
Ah.
Yeah, and it was, we had a lot of,
So it sounds like it was right next to the Vendome Hotel,
no, it was next to
Dr. Brumwell.
Dr. Brummel.
And then was
Then-
the Vendome
Yeah,
Hotel.
Sook's, and then the
Oh,
hotel.
Sook's, that's right.
Yeah, Sook's. And
Sook's restaurant
yeah,
or tavern,
and then
yeah.
the Vendome Hotel.
And then the Vendome, okay.
And then there was, Stella Holman had a hairdresser, a beauty shop.
Beauty shop, okay.
And then Shorty Barrington had a barber shop. And I cleaned that barber shop on weekends.
Really? That was the way you earned
Oh,
some
that
money, huh?
was hard work getting that hair off the floor. Yeah. So anyway, I did that. And then, of course, McGuire's was a neat place for all the kids to generate there from high school. And she was such a nice lady. That's Porky Tornado's wife.
Oh,
What is her name?
was it Loretta?
Loretta. Thank you.
Loretta's mother?
It was
and
her
father?
grandmother.
Oh, her
that ran-
grandmother.
her
And was
grandma-
it like a soda fountain? Like a,
She had a soda fountain, and
Okay.
the other side of the room was, had little ice cream tables and lace curtains. It was so cute. And the kids would go there and generate, we'd go and most of them were shooting their straws up, stick it to the ceiling. And she never said a word. All these kids would come in there and have such a good time. And they had one of these nut machines in the beginning with cashews getting warm in there. And every day after school, I'd go and buy a quarter of nut cashews and then walk home and eat them on the way home. I still love cashews.
that's a luxury, huh?
Yeah, it was good, yes. And anyway, from there, it went to where the stairway is, up the side of the building. Well, Dr. Ballard had his office up there. And his wife was a doctor also. And she did chicken schools, and made us drink that ugly water that they call milk. We always called it blue water. No fat in it at all. And then on frosty days, we had to go and get those little bottles like that and have milk. Because we were skinny, and she thought we needed extra milk. So anyway, that's what we had. And then we had, of course, eventually, Dr. Bridges came in and had his dentist office up there, and I worked for him
Oh, you did?
for 7 years.
What did you do for Dr. Bridges?
I was an assistant.
Oh, okay.
And then we moved over on South Russ
Oh, okay.
when he
To
built
where
his
he
new
had
building,
his-
yes.
Okay.
And of course, when I first started working there, I was working at Freeman's, and his wife would always come in and say, "Why don't you come and work for me?" And I said, "No, I just have this job, and I like it, and I'll stay here." And she says, "Well, if my girl quits, you come and work for us." Chris Bridges told me. So I went home so happy. I said, "I was offered a job today, Mom." And she said, "What kind?" I said, "Go work for the dentist." And she said, "How can you do that? You can't even stand the look of blood," she says, "and you're going to pass out." Well, guess what? The first day I started with him, he had an impacted wisdom tooth to take out. I thought, oh dear. So anyway, I'm assisting him, and he looks at me and he says, "Would you like to be excused?" And I said, "Yes." So I went into the waiting room, put my head between my legs, and said, "Well, if you want to work here, you got to straighten up." So I shook my head, went back. He says, "You okay?" And I said, "Oh, yeah." So I did work for him for 7 years.
So did he train you? Because you obviously
Yes,
didn't go to
yes,
dental school
yeah.
or training.
Now you have to go through a lot of
Yeah,
rigmarole.
yeah.
But he trained I did for him, I process x-rays, I helped with mold, and I assisted him with fillings,
And then before that, you worked at Freeman's, which was a clothing store? Okay.
Yes, I did. A nice place. And it was during the war, so we had a lot of rationing kind of things in there. Sheets, stockings, Levi's, all the many things that happened, that were short during the wartime. Yeah.
And so that was, now we're almost back to the corner of Broadway and 3rd.
Yeah, well, was a shoe store in there
A
too.
shoe store,
and
okay.
A Bolton jewelry
Bolton's
store.
Jewelers, okay, all right.
Bolton was on the 200 block first.
Oh,
And then he moved down by the post office. And he moved into that building during the war.
Where are you referring to was the post office?
The post office was across the street from the theater.
Oh, on the 200 block of Broadway. Okay. So on that corner there across the street is what we now know as California Gourmet Pizza or Cheezer's Pizza.
That was a bank.
That was a bank and eventually became Wells Fargo Bank, right?
Excuse me?
Eventually became Wells Fargo Bank.
Yes.
Was it Wells Fargo when you were a girl, or was it Monterey Savings and Trust?
Monterey, because I didn't join
Okay.
the Wells Fargo till I got married.
Okay, all right. And then what about that 200 block? It's all been torn down now, and it's Town Square. What do you remember about that block?
Well, that block was the bank on the corner and
Okay.
Hitchcock Drugstore.
Okay.
And then there was, I'm trying to think if there was a little, I can't remember, but anyway, there was a smoke shop.
Smoke shop. They sold cigarettes and cigars and. Okay.
There was a drugstore in there, well, Hitchcock's drugstore. Then there was a little grocery store in there, and it used to belong to Chauncey Bernetti, who lived over on Pearl Street for many years, had a pretty parrot, and we used to go through there and talk to the parrot.
The parrot in the store?
No, in his yard.
Oh, in his yard.
Yeah, across from the school.
Oh.
Anyway, but Chauncey was a nice fella, and he had this little grocery store. Well, then Mr. Lynn took the grocery store over, the first generation that I knew. And then the next door was the post office.
Okay.
There is a stairway there too, there's by the post, that was the post office. And up the stairway, you went up on top, there was like apartments, but it wasn't apartments. It was a big open spot, and they made a bowling alley up there.
Oh, really?
Ma Hobble's bowling alley. And then they moved over on 2nd Street eventually, and my brother and I were pin setters for a while because nothing was automatic. we saw those balls rolling down those alleys, and you really made sure you got out of the way.
And then when you would go and pick them up and put them back, when you say
set
a
the
pin
pins.
setter? Oh, okay, that
Yeah.
was so long.
And then across the street, of course, became the jailhouse and Time Lumber Company. And then back on Main Street, there was Albanise's repair shop, a shoe repair shop. And next to that was a shoe shine place. And next to that, there was a barber shop. And then there was a little open spot, but Penny's was next in line. And then there was Penny's, and I'm trying to think what else was there. And then there was R.C. Jones's grocery store. And my brother Joe worked for him.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm. He delivered groceries to the houses. So
They're starting to do that again now.
yeah.
People want home delivery.
Yeah. Well, when I was a girl, my folks would go to the store, but we always had an ice wagon come around because we had ice boxes. We had to dump the water under those dump boxes because they'd flow over on the floor. And so they would come, and then the guy would break off a piece of ice, and we'd get a piece of newspaper and wrap the ice and chew on it. That's one of our little treats, you know. And then we also had Mr. NG that had a little, right below that, where Pinnacles is, he had a little truck farm down there, and he sold groceries, vegetables to the house, and strawberries, and he'd come with his little donkey with his wagon. Well, it was kind of a small horse, and he would come and he'd sit up there, any strawberries today? You know, we go and get strawberries from him. And
so his place was like on the way to San Lorenzo Park? He had like an area down there?
Yeah, right below that
Okay, all right.
where the motel is in Pinnacle. That was all Mr. NG's growing veggies down there. So.
And then you're onto the 100 block where the El Camino Hotel is.
Okay, well, and I don't know what there was there, to my recollection, but there was the Stockman's Bar, then it changed to the Black Cat, and I don't know what else it's changed to now, but it's, I think, a Mexican store.
Food now, yeah, but it was a bar for a long time.
Yeah, and then there was a barber shop. Mr. Yates had a barber shop. There was a barber shop on the 300 block. It was Hotshot Fraser, Lukey Fraser's husband, and he was quite a nice young man, and he was young then when I knew him. But anyway, I went to school with his daughter, and anyway, we had many years together in school, and then up there. We had, well, you know where that Mexican restaurant is now, La Casitas or whatever that one is?
Lugarcitas?
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the building next to that was, held the fire truck.
Oh, okay.
There was a fire truck there. And then it went into the Ford garage.
Ford garage,
And Mr. Funk had. And then the El Camino. And
so aside from standing on the top of the El Camino spotting planes, did you ever spend any time at the El Camino Hotel?
Yeah, when I got married, I had my reception there in the Spanish room.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and had a lot of friends from the airport. Their wives would come and stay in the hotel, and we'd go up there and visit and spend some time with them. They were nice people. And so and then they had a little bar that went off on First Street. And that was the jumpinest place you ever wanted to have. You couldn't hardly move. If you fell down, you wouldn't hit the floor. It was unbelievable. And all the cowboys generated there.
And didn't you tell me that because it was Highway 101,
the trucks would go through the window of the restaurant.
Crash into the, because they were trying to turn the corner there.
And they went too fast and didn't make it.
And so you saw one of that happen a couple times?
I remember 3 trucks going through the window. Yeah, and my dad was cooking there at the time.
Okay.
Yeah, and then 101 was a very busy, it was through town. And I got out to go to the grocery store, and I had my son Tim and Kelly in the car, and I was putting them down to getting Kelly out of the car seat, well, wherever he was sitting in the car in the front. And I set my oldest son down by me, and he took off and ran across the street to the Purity, and here's this big semi-truck coming down, and I'm standing there screaming at him. And when I got over there, I spanked the tar out of him. I was so frightened.
It was a busy street, wasn't it?
But nowadays they would put me in jail. But anyway, it just frightened me so much. I thought, oh my gosh, you little rascal.
Yeah, your kids are precious to you.
Yeah.
So, Josephine, you have an amazing memory, and I really appreciate what you're telling us. I want to take just a break for a couple of minutes, and then come back, and we'll kind of finish up our interview. I'd like you to tell us a little bit about when you got married and what you remember about after the jobs that you had after you were married. So let's take a break for a minute. Okay, so we're going to continue on with a few questions for Josephine to finish up our interview. So, Josephine, I would like to know when you got married and to whom you married and how you met.
I got married in December the 3rd of 1950 to Bill Koester, and he lived in Greenfield.
And how did you meet him?
I was at my girlfriend's engagement party. It was kind of party where men and women went together, you know. It's not like now we separate everybody. But anyway, he was playing cards, and I asked who he was, and he said, oh, he's that guy down the street that raises hogs. I said, oh, thank you. Anyway, didn't pay attention anymore, so then, of course, I went out with several other people, and I came back to Bill Koester.
So did he call you then later on? Or
Yes, he did.
He must have had his eye on you, huh?
I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Because many times he says, I'm not coming to visit you, and then I go off with my girlfriend to the show, and he'd come back, and Mom would say, I had a visitor tonight, and I said, who'd you have? He said, Bill was here. I said, well, he didn't tell me he was coming tonight, so too bad.
So you were about 25 when you got married?
Yes.
And then let's just briefly go back and talk about your husband's parents. What were their names?
William, the junior, and Lucy, Paul's Koester.
Okay. And were they from Greenfield?
No, Bill's father's family farmed in Gonzales, Soledad, and they were early family in San Lucas, and Bill's aunt was born in San Lucas, and then Papa would go from San Lucas to out like Peachtree area and haul grain, and herd turkeys down the road, and did all that farm kind of thing. And then they moved, I guess, later on they moved to Gonzales and Soledad and dry farmed. And they also farmed here along Central Avenue, dry farming. And his brother, of course, is Fred Koester that lives across the river here. He's had sisters. One was a Meinberg that had the milk plant, the Meinberg milk plant. Mm-hmm. And one just did general work, and there was several of them, yes. And
so when you got married, did you move into a house in King City?
Well, we spent 1 year in the Peachtree.
At Peachtree Ranch?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
My husband, cowboy.
Okay.
And he loved it, so we stayed there for a while. But then I told him, this isn't going to work. This is like Starvation Flats. We can't stretch our money. So we moved to town.
And to the house where you live now, or to a
Yes.
different one? Really? So how many years have you lived in your house?
Almost 65.
And did you, at the time that you moved into your house, did you get a stove that you added to your?
I did. When I was working for the dentist, I went to Van Horn's appliance store south of town, and I approached him and asked him if he would be willing to sell me a stove, and if I could make payments on it, and because I don't have any place to put it now because I'm getting married. And I said, if you're willing to do that, I will come and give you a payment every week until it's paid. And he said, no problem. So I did, and I am still using the stove.
And what is the name of the stove?
It's Ridgewood.
Wedgwood.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and you're still using
It
the one you
has-
got when you got married.
Yeah, and it has 4 burners and a wood box on the side, a wood burner on the side.
And it still works pretty well?
Yeah, I just made some banana bread in it this morning.
And it works,
I
that's
made
fantastic.
4 loaves of banana bread.
That's wonderful. I think you got your money's worth out of that.
Yes, and I got a refrigerator from, what the heck was his name? Blank. His appliance store was across from the post office,
Okay.
where the Mexican has his shop there. And I was looking for a refrigerator. So he says, you know, I got somebody repossessing, it's brand new. I said, oh, let me see it. And I said, I'll take it. So I paid $200 for it.
You don't still have that one, do you?
I do, I have it in my
Oh,
back.
my land.
I have it in my back porch.
Oh.
I keep all my baking
I
supplies
guess
in there.
That is wonderful.
Yep.
So I want to, just for the record, you have how many children?
I have 4 children.
4 children, and what are their names?
Tim lives, that's my oldest, and he lives out in Lockwood, and
Okay.
he worked for the forestry.
Okay,
My second son, Kelly, is
Okay.
up in Reading, and he's a contractor.
okay.
And my daughter lives in Clovis, and she is a teacher,
What's her name?
Kimberly.
Kimberly, okay.
And then Tammy Marie is here in south of town. She works for the Wild Horse,
Okay.
and she's an all-around general gardener and whatever, plumber, whatever.
So you and Bill were married for how many years?
57.
57 years. And how long has he been gone now?
He died in 208.
208, okay. And so you have stayed busy over the years doing an awful lot of jobs. Do you want to just run down the list of jobs for me, starting with, you got a list with you? I think it's amazing what you've done in your life.
Where's my jobs? I stood, when I was in the 8th grade, I did babysitting all night for 50 cents. I did the bowling alley. I did the skating rink. Do you know where the skating rink was?
I do.
Okay, I put skates on to be able to skate.
Is that the one that was across from the city hall?
Yes.
Okay,
And I cleaned the barber shop and beauty shop.
okay.
I worked in the dime store. I counted nuts and bolts till I was green on inventory. Good thing they have computers now to do that job. That was a pain in the you-know-where. I worked at the Real Joy Theater,
Doing what?
ushering. We
Oh,
had
okay.
flashlights,
Okay.
and we had the loges, and we couldn't eat anything in there because it would dirty the floor.
All right.
And we wore kind of a uniform, navy pants and a sash and a white blouse.
Okay.
It was very uptown during the war, you know. Yeah, it was, you know.
Okay, Real Joy, what else?
And then I worked at Dr. Bridges's and Freeman's,
Uh-huh.
the USO, and the airport. I worked in the guest mess hall.
Okay.
And like I say, I was a plane spotter. I worked at the school cafeteria at San Lorenzo while my kids were growing up.
Okay.
And then when Tammy got in school, well, she was in kindergarten, well, then that way I was working while she was in school, and then I got off when she got out, and I didn't have to pay for a babysitter. So that worked out fine for me, yes. So anyway, we did that. And of course, I worked at the clinic on Canal Street for several years for Dr. Hyde and many other doctors that visited the clinic. And then I left there when Dr. Harrison came and opened up his practice. I went to his office, and I retired there at 82.
At 82. I'd say that is a lot of different types of careers that you've had. That's wonderful. And now, since you retired, how do you spend your time?
Well, I get up in the morning first and say, thank you, God.
You're still kicking, huh?
As long as I can stand up and move, I thank God every morning. And get in and start working, and I do gardening, I have chickens, I can, I bake, I volunteer, you name it.
You've been involved in the Silver Kings and Queens, I know.
Yes, I used to be president at one time.
Oh, you were, okay.
And I'm still doing odds and ends, and I'm called the Sunshine Lady.
Okay.
Sometimes it's not very sunny because it's all sympathy cards.
Yeah, kind of sad things.
So
happen.
anyway, I'm trying to think what else I did when of course I was little, when we were young, we would, like I say, make a little change for going to different things. And I tell people that I cleaned bricks with a ball-peen hammer, knocked off the cement, and they said, how much did you get paid for that? Oh, a nickel or a dime. We had to do like they do the wood, you had to stack your bricks, like tiers, and that's how we got paid. And so that's how we made a little extra money.
So I want to conclude our interview. I honestly think, Josephine, that there is a lot more that we could talk to you about, and I think maybe at a future date, if you're open to it, we'll schedule another interview to talk about some different topics. But before we close, I just want to ask you if you feel like the time that you've spent in King City has been a positive experience, or that if you feel that the town has changed in ways that
I disagree.
That you don't like, or
yeah. I can relate to that a lot.
You have some fond memories of what it was
Before,
a long time ago.
Yes.
But there are some good things, or I think some good things are happening now,
yes,
that they're kind of preserving some of those old
very
buildings.
Much so.
Yeah.
It's just starting to go back to being a nice little town. For a while there, I was very disappointed in our town. But right now, it's coming back, and it's making me feel good about it. There's a few things that are going to have to change eventually to the better. It just makes me very unhappy when they say, oh, we'll tear that building down and build a new one. Well, I don't understand why people want to tear things down when it can be reused.
Well, you have obviously demonstrated the value of old things like your stove and preserving them, and I think that's wonderful. And I think that it would be great if we could talk some more about other thoughts that you have about the town, because obviously you've experienced a lot here.
I feel I had a good life here, my life. I enjoyed all the people. It's just a family, and it was a close-knit family when I was growing up. Everybody knew each other, and at least I did. Of course, I'm one of these pushy old things, and I talk a lot, and I tell people what I think, and so that's what my life.
But it's kept you active and kept you involved in the community, and I think that's why people like you and people want to understand more about the town through you. So I think that we like to end our interviews just kind of on a positive note with the idea that we look forward to hearing more from you. And now that we've planted some seeds and you've planted some seeds with us, we'll have other questions down the road. And we only covered about 4 blocks of town. There's a lot of other areas of town and different things that you would have been involved in. I'm thinking in the medical community and in the schools. And so we'll talk about those another time. And I hope that you keep getting up every morning and keep doing all those things that you're doing, because I think that keeps you alert, and it's wonderful. You're a great example of somebody who is got some clear thinking and can remember those things that are really special. So is there anything else that you would like to say before we close? Otherwise we're...
Right now, I'm glad that I got the opportunity to talk about our city. I'd like you say there's a lot more things in town that I could talk about, like 2 ways going across the bridge. There was a restaurant down there by the bridge, and a wrecking yard, and the golf course was the garbage dump. And there's just so many things that I remember.
Well, I want you to make a list of those things we didn't get a chance to talk about, and we'll start with that the next time. How's that?
That's fine.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you.